Longevity Plus would like to thank you for joining our webinar today. Dr. Gary Gordon is an expert on nutrition, mineral metabolism, and anti-aging. He is a consultant to Longevity Plus, where he is responsible for designing effective natural supplements that help to support optimal health. Today, Dr. Gordon's presentation is entitled, Why I Believe PEMF is a Critical Part of Any Real Cancer Cure. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Gary Gordon.
Welcome back, everyone. I've had an exciting week since our last webinar. I've spent 4 days in Florida at an extremely educational meeting on cancer. And it turns out that we can now tell you about a group that's called the Best Answer for Cancer. And my presentation there started out with these slides, but we have what we call a technical failure of the computer, so we will go over all the slides today because the attendees who came to hear this talk only saw a very small portion of it before the computer failed. So the first slide is to remind everybody, as I told the audience, we will never have any long-term health unless you find effective ways to get the toxins out of everyone. Now, I have my power drink, which I'll go on with you at the end, and my Beyond Chelation. We have the most effective form of oral vitamin C available anywhere in the world, and it is extremely well tolerated, so you can take 12 grams a day. And we have a zeolite product that is liquid and a capsule that is made into a liquid before you drink it that can change lives. We have cancer patients getting well with just zeolite, amazing in high doses. So what is going on here? This first slide is to tell you that the front page of the USA Today on May 12th was an article about why the war zone military returning vets are so sick. And it turned out that unbeknownst to us, they are inhaling microscopic dust that is loaded with toxic metals. Now, why am I making a big deal out of it? Because that's what's happening to everyone on the planet. They just got it worse because there's so much dust there. But they found 1,000 pieces of this dust that can sit on the head of a pin. But when you breathe it, you're getting lead poisoning. And look at this slide. This was the front cover of last month, April this year, Discovery, showing you that you're getting 1,400 tons of mercury a year coming to us from China. And most of you have no idea of this because when you go to a doctor and he tells you, oh, you're depressed, take an antidepressant, or you've got cancer, take chemo, radiation, and surgery, or you've got autoimmune disease, nobody is talking about the facts. These mercury plumes are coming into your body. And so you need to know that the reason PEMF is so exciting is it can make all the other things you want to do, like stem cells, which they now know can help mend liver damage. Stem cells are turned on when you use PEMF therapy. And it's important to know that stem cells that are part of the healing process that has got me feeling better than I have felt in 50 years. And since I'm 76, that takes me back a while. But you need to know that lasers can work extremely well in a magnetic field because there's a thing called quantum mechanics that explains that. And what I'm leading up to is how am I going to give you the energy that I've got? Well, I've been on oral chelation now for well on to 30 years, never taking less than a gram a day of the oral EDTA, and everybody thinks that won't work. Look at my website. Go to gordonresearch.com and decide for yourself. There's 507 references on my website with the actual abstract of the article showing you what EDTA can do to protect your liver and to get lead out of your body slowly because you're born with 1,000 times too much lead because of the lead that I'm telling you about that is in the water, food, and air. So where are you going to get the energy to run and feel as good as I do at 76? the mitochondria are the motor for the cell. And it turns out that PEMF actually restores mitochondrial function. So that's one of the reasons I'm saying that we need magnetism, because without mitochondrial function, the cell doesn't have the energy to take in all the nutrients that many of us now know that we need extra vitamin D every day, and we need more C, and most of us have learned the benefits of taking extra selenium, and we're beginning to understand that we need supplements, but what if you're not getting much use from them? So of course you can go to a doctor and have them give them intravenously, but what if you are on a planet where the key factor is magnetism, the natural magnetic signal, and that field is disappearing because of the earth changes that are going on. Now Russians know they can't put you in space without using a pulsed electromagnetic field to keep you from losing all your bones and from losing energy. So the Earth's magnetic field is down tremendously from what it was, at least 90% down from what it was at the time of dinosaurs. So in addition to that, we have a lot of electronic smog, which makes our body need all of its vital energy so it can process these challenges that come from our cell phones, etc. Now everybody's heard that it looks like we could be around close to the time that the North Pole becomes South Pole, and that happens about every 300,000 years, but it's a little overdue now since it hasn't happened for 780,000 years. But that's going to change your health, and it's beginning to suggest that that has something to do with why birds are falling out of the sky and why the runway in Tampa had to be renumbered because the North Pole is not where it once was. So as you lose the magnetic energy of the Earth, we as citizens on the planet are going to be suffering from more ultraviolet radiation and solar storms. And that's going to pummel our atmosphere with radiation that will help destroy the ozone that they're attacking the car, and they're getting into carbon trading because they don't read the science to understand carbon trading is nothing. Our car pollution, of course, is not nice, but the real problem is clearly what's going on. And so there's a huge breach, there's a huge hole in the magnetic field. Now you look at Mars and it's a dead planet because there is no magnetic field. If we lose ours, we are, of course, dead. So there's these big changes going on. And the weakening field leads to very interesting form of cloud formation. And we know that this field, the geomagnetic field we're discussing that is collapsing, according to Florida Atlantic University, has a great deal to do with cell regulation. So what I'm teaching you is that when your body has cancer, you're going to want to learn what can you do to increase the efficacy of toxic removal. And only by restoring your body to optimum mitochondrial energy can we hope to have the energy to pump out lead, mercury, cadmium, dioxins, PCB, polybrominated diphenyl ether, etc. So the weakening of the Earth's electromagnetic field is having an adverse effect on the immune system, and it even explains the epidemic of depression, which is kind of interesting because depression is becoming a major problem worldwide. It's not just the post-traumatic stress disorder that our soldiers are having. It's happening everywhere. Now we can state unequivocally that the heavy metals like lead and mercury that are increasingly taken up in our body by breathing air anywhere. I don't care where you live. If you live in beautiful San Francisco, 40% of your mercury is coming from breathing air that was carrying dust directly into your body from China. But dementia, depression, mental disorders, they're on the world increase everywhere. But of course, if you realize that it all makes total sense because we need to have something to bring back the field, the pulsed electromagnetic field, and whether you use the large unit on wheels, which I have so I can easily treat my horse, or small wheels so a doctor can go from room to room in his office and treat many patients, or the nice looking office units that are increasingly being bought now by private citizens who see so much improvement in their sex functioning, in their kidney function, in their chronic pain. Their shoulder doesn't have to be operated on. Shoulders tend to get well so rapidly, knees a little slower, but without question, almost everybody who gets at least 3 of these treatments, taking 10 to 12 minutes total, 80% will say, I know something is started. So you're only as healthy as your cells, and your cells aren't healthy because there isn't the electromagnetic energy that causes the cells to metabolize our food and the oxygen and the nutrients we swallow efficiently. So Dr. Pollack is from Johns Hopkins, and he was my guest at my energy conference, which is on my website. So if you go to gordonresearch.com, you can watch the lectures that I presented for my colleagues at the conference that was paired with the Arizona Integrative and Homeopathic Medical Association conference. And Dr. Pollack has actually written a book with over 500 references, and there isn't any condition from fractures to ischemic heart disease to impaired liver function that isn't improved when you use pulsed electromagnetic field. Now, there will be many devices. Go on Google, put in PEMF. You will find devices costing $2,000 and $3,000 and devices costing $60,000. How do you decide? Well, I had Dr. Pollack present a talk about the different devices and what they're approved for, and he was a speaker then at my energy conference, which you can watch the DVD at no cost on my GordonResearch.com website. So how does this stuff work? Well, it turns out that it excites the electrons so that they are more likely to take on metabolic activity. And what happens is the pH becomes much, much higher because you're more alkaline, and that allows your body to release oxygen more efficiently. So that was the stage that Otto Warburg talked about that set the stage for you to have cancer in the first place. So why do we set the stage? And don't think drinking alkaline water is going to solve the problem. You've got to make the cell alkaline, and the cell can't do that if it doesn't have what we're talking about here. But the other benefits are the blood gets thinner, and if the blood is real thick, it helps carry cancer cells to new areas. So there are many reasons, not just relaxing the vascular system so blood pressure drops up to 20%, but healing of wounds, bone mending. Provably, some studies showed as much as 5% increase in a severely osteoporotic bone in as little as 6 months. Now, that's really important because the Fosamax, the diphosphonates, all those are not safe for long-term use, and they're not correcting the problem. And in fact, we seem to find more fractures as the bone appears a little more dense. It isn't a healthy bone. So the bottom line is sodium-potassium exchange. Well, that's interesting. So if you look at this slide, if you simply look this up at PEMF.com, all of these are great articles that you can read about skin wound healing, and case study on the San Francisco 49ers. So when I was appointed by Dr. Mark Neveu, N-E-V-U-E, to be on the board of the National Foundation of Alternative Medicine, which was initially started by Congressman Berkeley Bedell because he was massively disappointed in the incapacity of the office and later the Center for Integrative Medicine at NIH, which seems to spend a lot of money and do nothing. So in his desperate efforts to short-circuit the incompetence of government to solve health problems, he put together the National Foundation for Alternative Medicine. But what was exciting is they had a team comb the entire world to find what's the most promising thing on the horizon, and it is this, what we're talking about, the PAP iron magnetic inductor. That is PEMF, the PAPIMI, and what we are talking about today is the latest version of an American-made, safe, efficient, effective form of what was once called a PEMF. So if we start looking at it, we're talking about potassium and sodium and oxygen winding up giving you vital electric energy. So that's the mitochondria. That's where we get, I repeat, that's the motor in our cells. And you can have a couple of hundred of these in a given heart muscle cell. Of course, you have a lot more when you exercise because they seem to thrive. If you're exercising, you get more mitochondria, so that more exercise gives you more energy. But what we found is that the electrical charge to generate ATP. ATP is the energy of a cell, and all these electrons flow through the transport chain, but they do it much more efficiently when they are in a really healthy magnetic field. So what we're talking about is the fundamental principle for cancer as it relates to the energy of a cell. So think what this slide is telling you. Cancer only happens in what we call acid cells that are low on oxygen and that have really impaired circulation. And now you're going to see that those cancer cells have a low transmembrane potential, down to 15 millivolts. But this is interesting, folks, because we know that the heart virtually never develops cancer. So I hope that wakes you up. If you could make all of your cells have a good transmembrane potential, which, by the way, means that the cell will be more alkaline, which means that there'll be more oxygen available for the cell, which means the cell won't have to go into the anaerobic, unhealthy metabolism associated with cancer cells. It stays with the efficient metabolism of aerobic cells. So membrane potential, where are you going to get this? Where are you going to get the volts? I mean, is every cell a battery, or do you have to run down and pick up some kind of a battery? No, you make the battery. Every cell becomes a battery when you pump the sodium out and have the potassium in. So this is key to the game. You have to understand that the cell membrane, extracellular and intracellular, what you want to have is the differences in concentration here determine for you how effective your battery is going to work. And so this actually, when we treat you and have you working efficiently, cell-cell communication is efficient, and the toe knows what the nose is doing. So we have this low energy crisis, and it's reflected in these kinds of problems: low transmembrane potential, excess sodium inside the cell. So you want to live on water pills the rest of your life? That's not the answer. They have side effects. So just because your feet get a little puffy, that's not the answer. Just because you're tired all the time, you need to understand that it would be useful to treat causes. Now, I've only practiced medicine 53 years or so, and we've really become knowledgeable about magnesium deficiency and the need for getting the lead out, because when I was a kid, my mom always told me to get the lead out because, frankly, as a kid, I was very sick. I had all my teeth filled with mercury 3 separate times. I had narcolepsy for a year. I could not go up a flight of steps without going into early heart failure at age 29. And so it's a miracle that at age 76 I have a brand new body. And I haven't had any stem cells other than those that the little machine allows my body to make, because it raises the potential of every cell in my body to do optimally what every cell is meant to do. That's function efficiently. So PEMF restores the cell membrane, increases the energy, enhances the immune function. So this is working even if you didn't swallow vitamin C, which I still would take because you're living on a polluted planet. So I hope I can encourage you to take zeolite in my power drink and my oral chelation. But I want you to know that this movie, which has been out over a year, the Brzezinski movie, is a real indictment of the lies going on in medicine today when they beat up families saying there is no treatment but the chemoradiation surgery. And then after the child starts to die and they give up and throw in the towel, and then you find out that people like the Brzezinski, absolutely, even after they have wrecked your child's brain with radiation and chemo, still the cancer goes away using these unapproved therapies. Why are they unapproved? Because they don't want them approved, because the market is so big. And so this is a new approach just to encourage you to think outside the box. This man is wearing a helmet that supplies electricity to his brain, and they're saying that this works at least as good, if not much better, than the chemo radiation that our deceased Senator Edward Kennedy had when he had his brain tumor of that exact kind, the multiform. So alternating electric fields arrest cell proliferation in animal and human brain tumors. So look at this carefully. This is out of Yale. So what I'm talking about here has been shown in a little place called Yale to be safe and effective in slows down tumor growth in life in human cancer patients. So we're talking about glioblastoma. Median time for disease progression was 26. Overall survival was 62. The disease was more than double the reported of historical controls. So to learn about what I'm telling you is doubling your lifespan. And that's kind of interesting because I'm not near death yet, so I am getting more than a doubling of my lifespan. I'm planning to live many, many more years because at age 76, I feel like a kid, but remember, I'm on my FIGHT program, which is on my website. If you go to Gordon Research and you look, it says Scott Forsgren reviews Dr. Gordon's FIGHT program. It's 18 well-written pages. If you read that and you choose to do that, I assure you, you will do better. I don't care what chronic illness you have. I don't care if it's ALS, MS, autism, Alzheimer's. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's breast cancer, liver failure, heart failure. You will do better on my 18-page FIGHT program than anything that you're getting from mainstream. But of course, mainstream has the advantage. They're covered by your insurance as they slowly kill you with drugs that never treat the causes because they don't seem to even care what the cause is. Why you're sick. You're always sick because you have a food sensitivity you haven't addressed, an infection that no one has diagnosed in you. Everybody has an infection that leads to inflammation. You always have some genetic abnormality, and we'll be doing genetic testing on all my complex patients and getting results that no one else can hope to get with a new gene test that I'm offering my patients, doing 70 different gene tests. So I am so confident. But the bad news is that none of this will be covered by insurance because we live in a highly controlled environment in which only he who buys Congress is allowed to dip into the money of the public. And so you have stuck with having to pay your own money to stay alive should you choose to be smart enough to not stay with mainstream therapy. But this slide is kind of interesting. Nanosecond pulsed electric fields. Well, that's what PEMF, using the PMT-100 device that I've shown you, both the wheeled model and the unwheeled model 15 slides ago. If you use this, it is a huge, it can go up to 19,000 Gauss. But it's only going to be up there for a nanosecond. But I want you to know that we find that that is doing amazing things to cause electroporation. What the heck's that? That's a way of getting nutrients across a membrane. Induce apoptosis. What's that? That means cancer cell commits suicide. So who's doing all this stuff? Well, the first thing is to understand that this is a new, exciting tool. And when we have people who choose to lease a PEMF for their personal or business use, they may pay $4.50 a month, and that at the end of 5 years they pay $1 and they own the machine. But they're going to be supplied with some direction, and people come to the office or home to make sure that the purchaser of a PEMF knows what they're doing. And there's these different loops. But one loop over the right cage would be good to support liver, and that's a big loop. And then there's small loops that we use over tumor. We might use it 15 minutes twice a day. So there's another device out there being used at Stanford and at Yale and UCLA, and it's this one. Now this one's 60,000 versus the 20,000 one, but this one you have no ability to treat your ankle if you've hurt it or your knee which isn't letting you go up and down the steps, or your hip because you didn't want to get a stupid hip replacement because you've heard the knee surgery isn't working that well and you're kind of limping for a long time and in pain, and so you want to get well. So why make it so you can only treat the brain? Yes, granted, this is FDA approved for depression. And granted, 60,000 isn't that much when people have been chronically depressed for years. But I do think it's important to realize that that's daily treatment. But we see people getting really good results if we can treat them as little as 2 or 3 times a week. But admittedly, at age 76, since I'm on my total nutritional support program, I'm also doing at least 10 minutes twice a day of the PEMF, and I apply it to my feet and then my back and then over my kidneys and then over my abdomen, over my prostate, then around my neck, then over an arm that was injured, and then across the whole head so that I save my vision and my hearing, because I am convinced, in my mind, having seen what anyone can watch on YouTube, a picture of a patient with serious Parkinson's in one treatment, getting a marked reduction in all that uncontrolled movement. So stem cells and nutrients. Well, we have nutrients that we think help your body to definitely support the induction of stem cells, and we now believe that, contrary to earlier opinion, you make new stem cells in your brain every day. All I want to do is make sure that you make enough new ones to more than offset the old ones that die each day, and have enough to handle all the overload society. So you'll want to have enough energy. ATP is what I can state unequivocally William Pollack of Johns Hopkins proved, that whether you sleep on the magnetic pad, which Dr. Bonley has in his Magnetico Sleep business, which you can watch their website, and they can cost as little as $800 to $3,600 depending on how big a bed, the king size, and how high a Gauss. But this is PEMF and stem cell research. I'm telling you, everybody thinks when there's no other hope for the patient, will go out and buy stem cells, and they'll spend $20,000. And it's a gamble. I've never seen anybody who spends $20,000 on a PEMF have any gamble. Yes, they may sell the machine a year later for a lousy $15,000, they lost $5,000, but they are walking. They saw results. I don't think you can treat yourself twice a day for 10 minutes with the PEMF unit called PMT 100 and fail to have demonstrable, real substantial benefit unless you absolutely insist on drinking a gallon of nasty alcohol each day, won't stop smoking, and won't take the supplements. In other words, the more you will work with my FIGHT program, the bigger the results will be with this. But I want you to really get excited about this. I'm really thinking that I'm just going to keep getting back function that I didn't have for years. So this young man said when he was treated the first time, he felt like the cloud, the fog over his head was lifted. And after one treatment with the unit, with the special attachment that allows you to put it on like a space captain over the head, he wound up getting eye contact, and in 6 weeks, instead of throwing him out of school, as they had said before he started this treatment, he was hopeless. At age 18, he had never completed his sentence. So when this little device, and this lady was in a wheelchair for 9 years, and she took this butterfly, there's 2 loops here, and you can have one loop on one side of the elbow and the other on the other side. And we're doing that with ALS patients and MS patients in Lyme, and Dr. Sue Massey, M-A-S-S-E-Y, in New Jersey, right across the river from New York City, was with me this weekend and is doing a wonderful job of teaching people how toxic you are, because if you can't stand to have this loop brought up close to your head, then your head has got some toxins that need to be dealt with. And in fact, with the large loop, if I put it over your face, if you start to hurt over a tooth, it tells you that tooth is unhealthy. And then I have you do this treatment with the pulse field and maybe buy a little laser so I can bring the vitality of that tooth and then do my FIGHT program. Don't anybody think that you can be healthy unless you're detoxing every day. You were born with 1,000 times more lead in all your bones than anyone on earth that we have found tested for at Caltech as recently as 700 years ago. So we are all born with so much toxin because the industrial age has moved around. The heavy metal got moved around and it wound up getting in the environment. So this lady, after 9 years of Guillain-Barré in a wheelchair, buys a machine, spends $20,000. It's a big gamble. How does she know it's going to work? But she looked and did her homework, and in 2 months, treating herself daily, she walked into church on her own power. And she wasn't even on our power drink, my oral chelation, or my zeolite. So we want everybody to appreciate the chronic diseases that are bankrupting the families, keeping them below poverty, are all the preventable diseases. And what we have, that's diabetes, heart disease, cancer. And what I'm trying to have everybody understand is that we do know what's wrong. Now, my late friend, Dr. Abraham Hoffer, put together a very simple program, which in a simpler time, quite a few years ago, this was all he had to do to cut down dramatically the number of people dying in days or weeks. So breast cancer patients were surviving only 3.7 months. But if they got the supplement program right here, they lived 70 months. So anybody telling you that you're just going to have rich urine if you swallow supplements is clearly not well informed. This is uterus cancer. 4 months without the vitamins, 99 months. So there's quite a difference there, folks. That's 25 times longer. Or the average was 45 months of life versus 2.6. So I hope you appreciate that what we're talking about is that when Newsweek tells everybody that antioxidants are a waste of time, they should be held accountable for the thousands of people who grew disenchanted and threw out their vitamin C and stopped taking their resveratrol, stopped taking their selenium, and didn't stay on any of their entire supplement program because this article isn't telling the truth. So if vitamin C can be an antioxidant, which is what most doctors still treat it as, but it becomes an oxidant when you alter the environment by raising temperature and raising the alkalinity and having less or more metals in the solution and proteins and polyphenol. All of these things decide whether or not the vitamin C that you take is going to be beneficial even if you're getting chemo or radiation. That's what's so crazy. They pretend as though if you're dumb enough to go and buy vitamin C, then no way will your chemo do you any good. Well, let's first ask a question. How much good is the chemo going to do anyhow? Please read, and I have covered this in previous lectures. Most of that chemo is basically letting you live 2 or 3 months longer, but it's costing somebody, maybe just the American taxpayer, and he's got plenty of money, but somebody's paying $100,000 for you to live 60 days. And yet when I propose to you that you might want to try a program that could cost you $1,000 a month for a while to follow anything like what I personally take. But if you started feeling as good as I do, then you might have the energy to earn the money to be able to spoil yourself and take the nutrients that are not in our food because we don't raise our own food and we don't enrich our soil with organic, natural fertilizer, and we're all subject to Monsanto's genetically modified food that has us all with leaky gut. 30% of us are being killed by taking gluten, so my FIGHT program covers your life if you'll spend the time, read 18 pages at gordonresearch.com. You can learn what I'm teaching. Now, this is just to tell you that FDA has approved the use of vitamin C in the vein when it's given with vitamin K3 as a treatment for late-stage bladder cancer. Well, for the love of Pete, if it's good for bladder cancer, is it going to be bad for uterine cancer? I mean, for prostate cancer? I'm trying to let you know that when I practiced out of necessity, I had to see my California patients from Sacramento, California, and I had to treat them in Tijuana, Mexico at the Manor Clinic because I would face doing jail time in California for treating my patients without using chemo, radiation, or surgery, which is such an outworn cliche. It does so little for most cases. And now that you know that the New York Times point out that 90,000 women were told they had DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ, and it wasn't that at all. There was just somebody misread the slides. So of course they took away your breast and they gave you all that radiation. So they're going to call those 90,000 patients cured, aren't they? Because they never had cancer. So you get into a lot of problems. But this book can help save your life. Because if you can't understand zeolite because you can't spell it, Z-E-O-L-I-T-E, and you don't want to take the time to go to my website, zeoliteanswer.com, to understand how many references I can show you about zeolite, a lot of us, about 76% of Americans, are willing to reach in their pocket, spend money to buy vitamin C. So all I did, because I couldn't take most of the vitamin C on the market without it giving me really bad diarrhea and gas and cramps, I spent several years and helped co-develop the specialized form of vitamin C today called Bioenergy C that allows anybody to work up, even if you have to work a little slowly, anybody can start taking one slightly heaping teaspoon 2 or 3 times a day. That's 8 to 12,000 milligrams. But only if you get up to that level are you going to have the ability to overcome these infections, because I give you the following assurance. If you read Harvard Medical School's statement, between 60 and 90% of all Americans have cytomegalic virus, and if you don't have that, you got chlamydia, and if you don't have that, you have Lyme. If you don't have that, you have XMRV. So all I'm trying to say is, please understand, folks, you can't find one single doctor that will talk to you about FIGHT. Because which doctor is going to tell you that you need to be off gluten? Is that going to be the gastrointestinal doctor or the allergy doctor? Which doctor is going to tell you you have to change your attitude and not give up and have a positive outlook? That's the focus. That's the second F. Or what doctor you're going to go to help you find something as simple as the silver I will show you that, along with vitamin C, can bring these infections, because they know for sure some of these cancers are definitely tied to some of these infections, and everybody has some one of these infections. So to let you know I'm really serious about this, we do know that my friend Dr. Kobayashi, working in Tokyo, is an MD, PhD, molecular biologist. Then he became board certified in pathology, and then he became board certified in oncology, and he's qualified, therefore, to tell you that he got the Sun Moon Church to help fund a multi-thousand-person 10-year study to find out, if you did a blood test on people once a year, could you keep them alive by telling them before it's too late that their cancer test starting to show they're getting a little more cancer. Like some people have tried to use the PSA, but I don't use that. I now use third-generation PSA and the phosphohexoisomerase and ultrasensitive HCG test, as you can get from email Chandel, Hollywood, Florida. Go to caprofile.net, caprofile.net. But Kobayashi, see the spelling. Go to my website and know that you can definitely spell that in the search area, or put in the word cancer on GordonResearch.com, and you'll see his paper, World Without Cancer. And you'll see how he tested Ronnie Reagan's cancer to tell him what was going on with his cancer. And he's had a tremendous success, because you see, if you get a test and it tells you have a little bit too much cancer, it's not a good time to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a time to learn about heat, negative ions, how to keep on monitoring your cancer test to be sure that it gets back to healthy range. What diet would you need to do? Which herbs would help you, like garlic, and that's part of my oral chelation program. So everybody taking beyond chelation is on garlic. But massage is very useful. It helps toxins move, but you can't move the toxins out if you don't have any magnetic field therapy, because we are, as a planet, seriously low on magnetic energy, and so everybody has what I call a magnetic deficiency syndrome. And that really means just that you have a lot of tiredness and that you don't have the ability, without a big boost of your ATP, the sodium-potassium pump, the transmembrane potential, without doing these things, you are not able to get all the benefits you should from any diet. But Kobayashi showed anybody, even if everybody in the family had developed that gastric carcinoma or breast cancer, it didn't make any difference. No matter how bad your genes are, if you will follow this program, here's the program. Change lifestyle, get more sleep, change diet, get more yellow and green vegetables. Detoxing, you have to do something every day. Don't think that you can go some spa for a week, 10 days, and that you're clean. That's nonsense. Take 30, 40, 50 IV chelation. It will not take the lid on your bones. So you have to take my oral chelation and my power drink and my zeolite, or you're not going to be able to keep that bone lead that doesn't go out when you do IV chelation. It doesn't go out when you just try running around the block. You have to have a program. And remember, bones in adults take 15 years to remodel. So please plan on whatever program that you're going to do. Plan to do it for a while. And I hear so much sad stuff on Sirius Satellite Channel 81, drradio.com, NYU Medical Center. People are allowed to call in all day long and talk to the heads of the Department of Orthopedics and Pediatrics and Psychiatry and Sports Medicine. And it is so sad to listen to how sick people are and the inconclusive advice they receive. Because they are always just saying, well, if that doesn't work, try this, and if that doesn't work, try that, and we've got this drug, but it's got that side effect, and if you do the surgery and we replace your knee, well, you may be sorry you had it replaced, because a lot of people later it doesn't work so well, and if you had your hip replaced, well, some of those are breaking down, you shouldn't do it until the last minute, and put it off as long as you can. But what's so sad, there's the rheumatologist and the cancer, they are all helping you within the confines of what we call allopathic medicine, which is to treat any disease with a dissimilar compound, versus homeopathic medicine, which I've been on the board of in Arizona for 9 years. And homeopathic medicine actually is when you treat a illness with similar, not dissimilar substances. That gets confusing, but bottom line, what I want everybody to understand is that beyond chelation improved actually is still my calling card, because remember, Dr. Lester Morrison had written 3 textbooks by the time I had him speak at ACAM, and when he got up and said that he had a 91% reduction in fatal heart attacks in patients on the Institute formula, I was riveted to my chair, because I was knowing, as the co-founder of ACAM, that chelation was doing wonderful things, but chelation was costing money. And at that time, we were doing the 3-hour chelation. Now we do my 5-minute chelation, which is painless, with calcium EDTA, and any doctor who reads anything I write will have to eventually switch, excepting for patients where the primary consideration is calcium accumulation on a tissue in your body. Then the old 3-hour treatment may be justifiable. But my 5-minute treatment of the IV is based on my knowledge. But if it's not getting the lead out of your bone, but our 5-minute treatment gets more lead out than the 3-hour treatment, and it doesn't hurt. And then you can have a Meyer cocktail with magnesium and some B vitamins after you get that 5-minute push form of chelation, or let it drip in. You can mix the Meyer together. But the point is that I have to have all my patients on these 9 pills every day, because one's a primrose and one's the omega-3, and the other 3 are the powerful multiple called Beyond Any Multiple, and 3 are where we spent the $10 million with Lester Morrison proving that these 3 pills could take people off aspirin, Plavix, and even Coumadin if it's used with everything here. And because we've been so successful, we give everybody phosphatidylserine and ginkgo, because if you're going to be alive at 90, you need all this stuff so your memory and your vision are maintained. So Essential Daily Defense, the Lester Morrison's thing, this has got in it resveratrol, tocotrienols, Utah minerals from the sea with cesium, rubidium, and vitamin K2. So if you look at this formula, this is part of the 9 pills. And knock on wood, we have month after month go by, Longevity Plus, in Payson, Arizona. 1-800-580-7587 doesn't get phone calls that 2 patients on the oral chelation died last week. We don't get those phone calls. There haven't been those kind of phone calls. And the bad thing is that the product isn't good enough that you can stop. It's only good enough that it keeps pushing out what's coming in, so that overall it keeps your total body content of these heavy metals down. But it's not strong enough that you can take it for 6 months and then take nothing for 6 years. Sorry. So it's got the omega-3 fish oil, and I wrote the really good book on this, which I hope someday the more you learn about omega-3, but I always like to balance omega-3 with evening primrose oil. And because you're going to live so long, and you need that vision, and you need your hearing, to say nothing about your memory, I like to give phosphatidylginkgo along with my oral chelator. So this is kind of my, what you would call, power drink, because it gives me power. Now, the power drink basically is 4 things: the Bioenergy C, the maca, the green powder, and the Beyond Fiber. And they have kind of a synergy to it. But what's this guy on the end? This is a product called Zero Gold, and it has in it glutathione, and it has in it humic acid, and it has in it a little of the Bioenergy C, and then it has in it the magical compound called zeolite. In fact, 1 bottle of this has equivalent to a whole bottle of ACZ Nano, which is the beginning dose that I use for beginners on detoxification. I meant to make you walk slow before you switch over to this, because I repeat, this is the equivalent of an entire bottle of the other zeolite form. Since most of you still have never been to my website called Zeolite Answer, I would encourage you to check it out, because you really need to know that although it's still widely unknown in this country, excepting there's a zeolite that is being sold by Waiora, W-A-I-O-R-A, that is got some big interest in that many people wind up, if they're taking 10 bottles a month, which they can get under special circumstances for a reduced rate of as much as just $260 a month, are doing extremely well. And that gratifies me, because I want everybody to know that what I'm preaching is the idea that if you don't realize that the toxins are in our bones, that the IV chelation can't get it all out. In fact, it hardly perturbs bone. So therefore, if you could stop breathing, you wouldn't be getting in more lead and mercury, but we do like our breathing. So I need to have something that safely can help you. And of course, all of these don't work as well as they could or should in you, because most of us haven't yet figured out how to band it together with neighbors or other family members and share one of the least $20,000 PEMF units for as little as $450 a month, depending on credit rating. But that way people have access to use the PEMF in their own management of their own health problems. So if we look at this, the fiber that I am pleased to have put together is really stabilized rice bran. And the stabilized rice bran is loaded with things called beta-cytosterol, which works in your body like cholestyramine or questran. It actually latches on to organic chemicals like the dioxins and PCBs and helps the body push them out. But you need to have a certain ratio of what we would call the fiber of the both soluble and insoluble. So by my adding the artichoke, the Jerusalem artichoke, which we get from Germany, very organic, and put that in, now I have the perfect balance. But I always add to this product EDTA, because I don't want you just using EDTA gum because you don't want to get all your teeth out. I mean, technically we all need the mercury fillings out of our mouth. But if it's going to cost you $20,000 and you don't have $20,000, then what can I do to keep you going for a while? Well, I can have you take, very simply, the EDTA gum called Easy Defense. And it is easy because you just take a big pill, munch on it, it becomes gum, and do that after each meal, and you will be having your EDTA, in a liquid form coming out of the gum, and you'll be treating the gut to grab whatever new mercury and or lead is coming in at that time from the food you're eating. So this is a pretty good trick. So it's important for everybody to know that this is still absolutely going month after month without having a phone call to Longevity Plus in Payson, Arizona at 1-800-580-PLUS. There's never been a phone call that Dr. Gordon was wrong. I lost 2 patients this week. Their wives called me. They're both very dead, and they were faithfully taking their beyond chelation twice a day. So if I really have somebody that's got unstable angina and they can hardly walk, and so I'm going to add Buluki, which I really like. It is a very excellent form of fiber, and I can use that safely to replace actually even the tissue plasminogen activator $3,000 shot that we give you if you rush to the hospital and you get there within an hour of your heart attack. So I'm talking about some strong stuff. But the powder in the Beyond Fiber, I take this as a slightly heaping teaspoon twice a day along with the green and along with the maca and along with my bioenergy C, and then I still get the zeolite on top of that. So at age 76, nobody ever told me it would be possible to feel as young as I do. Now, you might think that the reason I'm feeling so good is because I'm getting spirulina and chlorella. Well, fine. I don't deny there's wonderful research. So, of course, I get an organic source, and I give spinach, kale, parsley, dandelion. And I love the idea that these cereal grasses, wheatgrass, with the vegetable blend and the seed blend, you've got the best of all worlds. But I personally take maca. And maca is going to be a natural answer to Viagra, and it stabilizes the hormone function of both men and women. So it's a hormone balancing adaptogen, and it helps the entire endocrine system. So remember, my program is called FIGHT. The H is heavy metals, which we've talked about. The second H is hormones. Since a lot of people clearly are not going to be able to go and see an endocrinologist just because you've lost your sex drive, man or woman can safely take maca. And you can put progesterone topically on the skin. It really seems to be essential for clearly women and an awful lot of us men. I'm using it. And then because we have in our bodies a really interesting situation with estrogen receptors. By the way, you will see in here the maca looks kind of like, it could be a turnip. And that's a warning that it might taste a little like a turnip, so don't be surprised if you have to mask the taste with a little pomegranate juice or mango juice or grapefruit juice, whatever you'll use. But I want everybody to know that Zeal Gold has got some really exciting things going for it, because there is not at this point in time anywhere on the face of the earth that I've been able to find a zeolite that can compete with this product. But to make sure there's no competition, this product adds to the zeolite the glutathione and has in it the humic acid, as well as the special form of vitamin C called bioenergy C. So there's a lot of power to this approach. And when you start to learn about the research going on with Viora on treating cancer patients, and hear the tremendous number of remissions on patients getting 100 drops of zeolite a day, whether you take Zeal Gold or the Viora product, I believe it's called NCI, whatever you're taking, realize that I am pushing everyone to realize that detoxing is a lifetime program. So how much of this would I take? I'd like to get 100 to 250 milligrams of that each day, and I sometimes take even more. But what everybody will respect is that book that says Curing the Incurable, and everybody can kind of relate to the fact that vitamin C has always been laughed at. They say, well, you got rich urine. Sure, I have rich urine. But it's not just the vitamin C that's in my urine. Here I can measure with this stick. That little jar of sticks costs you $10. And every time you get that little stick, it's got a little green on the end of it. Well, if that green stays green when you wet it with your urine and wait a minute, then you can be sure that you have a huge oxidant load, toxins, and you don't have any antioxidant to fight back. So what I teach you is you're going to have a short life. So you better take that stick and figure out how to keep that stick yellow and have it 24/7 yellow. And this product, Bioenergy C, does that with as little as one slightly heaping teaspoon, roughly as little as once every morning, noon, and night. And you put it in water, and you've managed to protect yourself. So if on the way home from work somebody re-ends you, you have had protection, because if you can stay in this 100 milligram excretion, remember this is how much C is in your urine, you can't have it in your urine unless it's in your blood. And you can't have it in your blood unless you actually took it by mouth. That's important. Take it 3 times a day. You can take it with the power drink or by itself. But the big point is that you can't find another product that, at least I haven't been able to find one, and there's lots of hype and there's lots of liposome and everything. And they all claim it's going to cure everything. I always go back to the science. If you're able to find that this product, taken 1 slight heaping teaspoon morning, noon, and night, and you're able to keep the urine always in the yellow, that's 24/7, you have provably, according to Dr. Dawes in the Clinic St. George in Bad Aibling, Germany, where he does extraordinary work on the treatment of cancer, and he uses things like hyperthermia and magnetic therapy. And then centers like the Reardon Clinic in Wichita, Kansas, they have a lot of experience in treating cancer with vitamin C. So what do we need to have ACS for? What the heck is this? Well, this is silver. Now, this silver has been proven to actually take nasty infection like methicillin-resistant Staph aureus, and even though you have a huge number of the bad guys, get rid of virtually all of it in less than 3 minutes. Now, there's other products on the market that we test in the same laboratory, and one of them takes 60 minutes and it takes 5 hours. So if it kills it in less than 3 minutes, you're likely to keep this product in your mouth for 3 minutes when I tell you how many infections come from your gums and how that raises inflammation in your body and keeps your blood thick and challenges how long you get to live. So yeah, this isn't a bad trick. And the same thing with Candida albicans. Again, 2 minutes. And the same thing with Staph aureus. This is 15 seconds. So it's very clear that I can get you products that do something. And I said that. We start most people on the ACZ Nano, and that's because this product clearly takes and carries out mercury in your urine with a really nice dramatic change. In addition to that, it tends to do good things to bad cholesterol, but I never waste time on the cholesterol story because my patients, I haven't had one die of a fatal heart attack to my knowledge in at least 20 years. So I don't chase people's cholesterol very much. I think my 9 pills is pretty powerful. I would wish everybody could afford to be on it. It's kind of pricey to be on those 9 pills. There's a lot of stuff in there. But it would be nice if people could be on it. But I do want everybody to know that in this food elimination, you've got mercury excretion going way up after giving this orally. So what's PEMF got to do with it? Well, PEMF is what I now call magnetochelation because it is detoxifying, because the cells finally have the energy to push the bad stuff that's inside of your cells out. That's the trick that I'm raising. So we know that I can improve circulation with any one of these machines. They all do the exact same thing. They all cost the same price. The big loop, you can sit on it or lean back against it or put it around your neck, or I can take this big loop and bring it up slowly to your head and find out if you have a bunch of bad teeth, because if I bring it up slowly with a machine set as low as it can go to the minus, if it still makes your mouth go, ow, 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 because it pulses, beep, boop, beep, beep. If your mouth goes beep, then we know you have a bad tooth. Now, I'm not going to make everybody go and have it pulled, not until we make a good decision. Is it salvageable? what would happen if I would give you this treatment once or twice a day for a month, and I might have you buy a laser, even if you couldn't afford a big laser, maybe a pocket laser from Office Max, and aim that laser inside your mouth so it puts some more energy into that bad tooth, and then use the double coil to easily raise the potential cell membrane of your tooth and your mouth. So remember, when you're using these things, the pH gets alkaline, and that means the oxygen is released up to 10 times more effectively, and cancer cannot survive. So this is Dr. Gary Gordon, hoping that all of you will join me again in a week when we'll continue to bring you the saga of cancer patients, because the conference I attended put on by the Best Answer for Cancer, and you find that very easily when you go to www.bestanswerforcancer.org, all one word. But they have really a lot of doctors doing extremely creative and innovative things with low doses, like 10% of the standard dose of chemo, but they're doing all the other things that we have to do. The total body program, like my FIGHT program, would be their version, my version of what they are doing. And so we hope that all of you will understand that it's unfortunate that when you choose to think for yourself, that there is going to be none of the funding that they will throw at you if you let these guys give you radiation, chemo, and surgery. They don't care if it costs $100,000 and you only live an extra 2 weeks. It's no skin off your back because everybody wins. But I want you to know that all health professionals, we're still up there around hovering over 3,500 health professionals belonging to my website discussion group, which they go to mygordonresearch.com to join, and there's no charge. So this is signing off until next week, and